Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 142 of Crunch Time with the N326 duo. I'm your host today, Sam Godsey, and with me today, as always, is Tanner Dizon. Tanner, how are you feeling tonight?
Sam, I am feeling wonderful. It was a great weekend of football for me specifically, but also just in general. Iowa got a big win. The Vikings got a huge win, and I'm sure we'll talk about more of that later on in the episode. But we're already 3 weeks into the NFL season, 4 weeks into the college season. We're rolling now. We're rolling.
Yeah, it was an action-packed weekend. NFL was electric. College football was electric. We are in the full swing of the dramatics of college football. We're going to talk about that. Players of the week, as always, and finish up with Pick'em with a reoccurring guest, Jaron Kuykendall. He'll be on for that. So stay tuned for that. And then we wrap up with some questions from a listener. So we talk about that and so much more on episode 142 of Crunch Time with the N326 duo. But Tanner, let's kick it off as we always do. Winners and losers of the episode. Tanner, who is your winner?
Yeah, Sam, we're going to step away from football for a second. Now, this happened a little bit ago. We haven't recorded an episode since it happened, but it was very big news in, the news world, specifically the NBA news world. And so my winner is going to be Shams. What, do you know how to pronounce his last name?
No, not even going to try.
Shams C. We all know who Shams is, of course, and he is the winner because of Woj. Yes, Adrian Wojnarowski, the longtime ESPN lead NBA journalist. He always had his patented Woj bombs whenever a trade, a free agent deal, pretty much anything happened in the NBA. Injury, head coach firing, like I said, trade, free agency, you name it. He was the first to break it. And if he wasn't the first to break it, Shams was. So the two of them, of course, had a little rivalry in terms of breaking NBA news the quickest, and it became like a little meme if you were a Shams guy, if you were a Woj guy, which one you had notifications for, because they were the ones who gave you the information. Well, Woj has resigned his post at ESPN to become the GM of the basketball program of his alma mater, St. Bonaventure. So definitely, shout out Woj. He gets to do what I assume is a dream job of his, being the GM of basketball operations at his alma mater. He doesn't have to stay up all hours of the night.
Exactly.
Specifically, I remember the Kawhi Leonard to the Clippers news because I woke up in the middle of the night and my phone was blowing up because you and Keegan were texting about it. I was asleep. It was like 2 a.m. or something, and he was breaking the news. He was up always. He was always had his phone with him. He went to the bathroom with his phone. He was glued to that thing because his job depended on it. Well, now he doesn't have to. So he gets that freedom. But Shams became the number one news guy in the NBA, and I'm sure ESPN will be bidding for his services to replace the gaping hole left from Woj. So Shams just became the top dog in town. So I'm going to give him the winner of the episode. Hopefully he can capitalize on it and get a bag, probably from ESPN.
Yeah. Sad to see our guy Woj go. The last Woj bombshell was definitely one to remember. It was sad. I was a Woj guy.
I was too.
It was a sad day to turn off his post noties.
Are we in the trust tree?
What?
I still haven't done it yet.
Nice.
I still haven't done it yet.
I respect it.
I still got noties on. I
respect it.
I feel like I'd defile myself if I switch to Shams.
Oh, I refuse.
Oh, you're going no. You're going no.
No.
Wow.
I'm not a Shams guy.
Not a Shams guy.
Not a Shams guy. I'm gonna be honest. Maybe someone else will come out of the woodworks and take over. But yeah, it was definitely a good thing for Shams, but sad to see Woj go for sure. As for my winner, we are gonna go on the diamond. Yes, Sam Godsey on the diamond. Of course, you know who I'm talking about. Shohei Ohtani
Sugoi.
joining the 50-50 club in a league of his own. That occurred September 19th, and he could have not played better. He went 6 for 6, two doubles, three home runs, 10 RBIs, and two stolen bases. That made him the only member in the 51-51 club. And then since that, he has hit 53 home runs and 55 stolen bases. So yeah, he's kind of the GOAT of current day baseball.
I mean, you
for
said
sure.
the only member of the 51-51. He's the only member of the 50-50, let alone the 51-51. Yeah. I mean, what can we say that hasn't been said already about just how great this guy is? The only thing I have to add is specifically that game. I don't know if you have the stats up. That's the single greatest game in MLB history.
Yeah.
At least since, since the Negro leagues were welcomed into the MLB. Because what was it? 6 for 6, 3 home runs,
10 RBIs, two stolen bases, and two doubles.
That is the greatest game in MLB history. I'm going to say it, and it's crazy. And the fact that that's the game that got him 50-50 is nuts. What more can this guy do? I'm sure we'll find out, because I'm sure he'll break some more records by the end of this season. And then, of course, into next season, I'm sure he will too, because he'll be pitching again next season. He might even, be pitching in the postseason, as some rumors started rumbling about that. Not sure if there's any truth to it, but this guy's unreal.
Yeah.
Moral of the story.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Even as a non-MLB fan, you got to tip the cap to Shohei. But Tanner, the Marlins were definitely a loser, giving up all that to Shohei. But who is your loser of the episode?
Yeah, well, actually, but before we get to the loser, did you just happen to see what the Marlins manager said?
I did not.
So they asked him about it, and because he was 5 for 5. With 2 home runs already, and he was
6 for 6.
Well, I'm not quite to his last at bat, but they basically asked him, like, look, at any point in the game, did you think about walking him? Like when he was 5 for 5, when he was 4 for 4, and the Marlins manager said, hell no, I didn't like. I respect the game too much. I respect him too much. Like, we're gonna throw our guy, and if he hits it for a home run, he hits it for a home run. Like, and I think that was a pretty cool response, because I mean, obviously the Dodgers won the game like 20-4 or something. So a walk there would have just been pointless. There was no in-game reason to do it. If it was a close game, obviously, yes, but there was no in-game reason to do it other than just for him not to have it. So the way he reacted, saying, screw that, I respect him too much, we're going to send our guy, and if he hits it, he hits it. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But my loser of the episode, I think this has to be one of the biggest losers in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, and that is Bryce Young, and by proxy, the Carolina Panthers, because Bryce Young, as we have talked about, or maybe not, I can't remember if we talked about it or not, because they've just been so bad that we only have so much time to talk about all the games. We're not going to talk about the really bad teams. Carolina looked like they were on pace to be one of the worst teams in NFL history. They looked like they were absolutely on pace to go 0-17. First team to go 0-17. And it just, they looked awful. And Bryce Young looked awful. And the entire time we're sitting there saying, yeah, Bryce Young doesn't look good, but he has no help. The team is really bad. He's got no O-line. He's got no receivers. He's got no running game. So, how can anyone expect to be good? Well, they made the tough decision to bench Bryce Young, of course, their number 1 overall draft pick, for Andy Dalton. And all Andy Dalton did was have a good game. We'll dive into numbers later. But all he did was he had a very good game, and the Panthers won. And he had more touchdown or more points in the first half of his start than Bryce Young did in both of his starts to start the season. It doesn't get any better. Through 2 games, Bryce Young had a 55% completion percentage, 245 yards through 2 games, Sam. 4.4 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. Yikes. And I do feel bad for Bryce Young because, again, it's hard to blame the supporting cast right now after what Andy Dalton did after they won their game. And it seems like, I don't think Bryce Young is this bad as he's playing. He's in his own head right now. I think obviously he desperately needs a change of scenery, and maybe that'll work. But whatever's happening in Carolina, specifically Bryce Young in Carolina, is not working for Bryce Young. So I do feel bad for him, but he's a big, big loser after week 3. And by proxy, I said Carolina because Sam, with the way Andy Dalton played, do you think it's out of the realm of possibility that Carolina trades Bryce Young in the near future?
No, I don't. You mentioned we'd talk about Dalton's stats now. Let's just talk about later. Let's just talk about it now. He played phenomenal. Probably one of the best quarterback performances so far we've had in this NFL season. 26 for 38, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns. He looked absolutely incredible out there and made Bryce Young look not so good.
No, not at all. And he became the first player this year to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. One player, Andy Dalton. But you agree it's not out of the realm of possibility that they trade him. And what kind of value are you looking at for Bryce Young right now?
Yeah,
at the very highest, 4th.
Yeah,
just because he's a quarterback and he's the number 1 overall pick. Like, what did Justin Fields bring in? And Justin Fields' value was, I think, certainly higher.
Oh yeah,
than what Bryce Young is right now. But I just want to double check Justin Fields. The Bears traded Fields for a 6th round pick, and it could become a 4th. Yeah, so a 4th was probably way too aggressive. We're looking at a 6th or 7th, Sam. And if they do that, the reason why I added Carolina is because it might look like the Panthers would trade a 1st round pick, which ended up being the number 1 overall pick that the Bears took Caleb Williams. So 1st round pick, DJ Moore. I know they gave him their 2nd round pick this year. Yeah. And I know there's more. There's more picks that I don't know off the top of my head, but still, those three things I know
alone are crazy.
Those 3 for possibly what they get in return is a 6th or 7th round pick.
Yeah.
A 1st, DJ Moore, and a 2nd and more for a 6th round pick.
Yeah, I think a guy that can be comparable to kind of Bryce Young's situation is a guy that's kind of killing it right now. Malik Willis. He got traded from the Titans to the Packers, and he was traded for 2025 7th round. So you got to be thinking it's at least a 7th rounder for the Panthers. But yeah, definitely a huge miss so far on the Panthers side of things.
Yes, and if there's one theme of the NFL this year, it's what difference coaching makes. Because you mentioned Malik Willis, obviously another one, kind of one of the hotter names in the NFL right now, Sam Darnold, 2 guys that were left for dead. Yeah. And what's the common theme between them? They went and they took a backup role. Not that Willis really had a choice, but he got traded to the Packers. He was a backup to a good head coach. Obviously, Dalton on the 49ers behind Purdy with Shanahan, and then Willis on the Packers with LaFleur. A good head coach with a good quarterback and a good system where they just learn.
Yeah.
And what that does for a quarterback cannot be overstated. So Bryce Young, hopefully you can have that sort of career path similar to Darnold and Willis and kind of bounce back. But it's rough. It's rough.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess overarching theme of losers this week can be shitty quarterback play. Because for my loser, I'm going to go with Auburn's quarterback, Hank Brown. Hank Brown found out the hard way that karma is indeed a bitch. He mentioned going into the Arkansas game last Saturday. It's encouraging, but I think I got a lot to build on from this week. I love when the competition level is raised. That's when I'm playing my best. I'm excited for SEC play, and I'm excited to dominate Arkansas. Now, Mr. Brown played one half. 7 for 13, 72 yards, and 3 interceptions. So, like I said, karma is indeed a bitch. He got benched second half and is a real reason why the Razorbacks beat Auburn. They won 24-14. But yeah, you never say that coming off your first start as a quarterback, saying you're going to dominate Arkansas. Obviously, a lesser SEC opponent, but you still don't say that because that just gives the other team another chip on their shoulder.
Real tough look, not even finishing the game. Real tough look.
Yeah.
You said so the week before they played Arkansas was his first start.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, sir.
Okay, and they played New Mexico. Yeah, that's tough. That is really tough. And I mean, this Auburn team, obviously, they had that tough loss at home to Cal. I don't think they're very good. Hot take alert. I don't think they're very good.
Yeah, not good at all. But you ready to talk some ball, Tanner?
I am ready to talk some ball.
Let's dive right into it. College football week 4 kicked off, at least the notable games, on Friday as Illinois walked into Lincoln, Nebraska with the red hot Huskers. And boy, Illinois escapes with a win 31-24. Tanner, talk to me.
I am really impressed with Illinois. I think a lot of the conversation around this was same old Nebraska. And yeah, I do think they probably should have won this game, and they didn't down the stretch, they weren't their best team, and that's a typical Nebraska move. But my big takeaway was just how good this Illinois team actually is, and specifically how Luke Altmaier is not getting enough respect. He went in to Memorial Stadium really loud in Lincoln, as we all know. All he did was throw for 4 touchdowns, and he was very impressive in this game. And I mean, he didn't even need to throw for that many yards. He threw for 215, which is no slouch, but he was very efficient, 21 for 27. And again, the big one, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He did lose a fumble, but still, he for the most part took care of the football and had 4 touchdowns. So I am kind of I'm not going to say all in because, I don't think they're elite of the Big Ten, but I'm very impressed with this Illinois team. I think they're pretty good, and I think they can maybe scratch out a few more wins that people don't think they will. For me, man, the moral of the story here was that Illinois was really impressive.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head. You talked a little more about Altmaier and his tremendous play. I kind of want to highlight this defense, Tanner. Nebraska did get it going in the passing game. Dylan Raiola looked pretty good. I think he threw. Did he throw a pick? He did throw a pick, but when
actually that I remember watching that pick was not his fault.
Yeah,
it was not his fault at all. It was a very well thrown ball, and literally the wide receiver caught it. And before he could go to the ground, the DB just completely ripped it out of his arm. So
yeah, but I mean, they got their passing game going, but Illinois' defense absolutely demolished them in the run game. I mean, Nebraska only had 48 rushing yards in this one, and that's just tough to compete with if you're a one-dimensional offense going up against a ranked opponent. You also got to look at penalties on Nebraska side. 89 yards, penalty yards for 9 penalties compared to Illinois 3 for 20 yards. So just a lack of discipline on that front for Nebraska, but you got to give props to Illinois' rushing defense because they stomped on Nebraska.
Yes. I was watching the game with some Nebraska fans, and that was definitely what they were talking about the most is like, what the heck happened to our discipline? I mean, it was penalty, and obviously 9 for 89. I mean, that's nearly 10 yards of penalty. So they weren't false starts and harmless 5-yard penalties. They were personal fouls, holdings, things that really kill drives and kickstart opposing offense. And, going back to that pick, I mean, I'd say that the fact that it wasn't Rayola's fault is just an even bigger indictment of how good this defense played. I mean, the secondary was all over Nebraska's wide receivers. I mean, Rayola, the stats will be misleading because Rayola did throw for 297. But the secondary played really well, Sam, really well. Obviously a great play, and that was in the end zone too. So it looked like it was going to be a touchdown for Nebraska. Great play by the secondary for Illinois. Flip the field, they get the ball. I mean, it was top to bottom. I was impressed. Now, if you're Nebraska, I don't think it's time to push the panic button at all. I just think you need to clean it up. You just need to clean it up. We talked about the penalties, and specifically, I don't know if you watched their series in overtime, Sam. It could not have been a tale of two different possessions because overtime starts. Illinois, very first play, they run for about 23 yards down to the 2, and then the next play they punch it in right away. Memorial Stadium is a little bit quiet, of course. They're silenced a little bit, and then Nebraska comes out. First play, before the first snap, they false start. Then he gets sacked. So we're looking at like 2nd and 25 at this point. He gets sacked again. They had a 3rd and 42 in their series in overtime.
Brutal.
Can't have it. They just can't have it.
Yeah. You mentioned how poorly Nebraska played in that overtime. In the past decade, this comes from Pick Six previews. They are 0-8 when a game goes into overtime. 0 points scored. 0 first downs. Minus 20 total yards on 28 plays and 4 interceptions. I mean, this was an opportunity for Nebraska to get a ranked win. They haven't gotten one of those in 2,926 days. So it good. Felt like this was Nebraska's I'm back here. And when you face a good opponent, things go awry.
Yep, for sure. And they highlight all the issues when the other team can take advantage of it. And I don't think Colorado nor Northern Iowa can take advantage of it. Illinois did.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving to the college game day game, Tennessee 25, Oklahoma 15. Tanner, it looks like these Volunteers are red hot to come out of the season. And boy, did they make it tough for Boomer Sooner in their SEC debut.
Yeah, I mean, a real impressive road win. I love this Tennessee team, man. I do. They are, for the first time, they feel like a well-rounded team. When I think Tennessee, specifically the Hendon Hooker years in that game against Bama, that signature win where they beat Bama at Neyland Stadium. The game was like 43-41, or, the defense barely hanging on. This defense is good, man.
Yeah.
This defense is good, and that offense is really good. Nico, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Iamalava or something like that.
Yeah. Iamalava, I think. I don't know. But he is obviously the real deal. Us Iowa fans saw that last year. He ran and threw all over us
I forgot he played us in the bowl game.
Like
yeah, it's Iamalava.
Iamalava. Yeah.
That's what.
This is great podcasting. I love this.
Iamalava.
Oh, that's right.
Iamaleava. There's a pronunciation.
Iamaleava. Okay. Iamaleava. Ooh.
Iamaleava.
Okay, I'm feeling it now. But yeah, he is he's really freaking good. This Tennessee team is really scary. I could not be more in on this Tennessee team. It just makes me so much more excited for October 19th.
Yeah.
When we have Texas, Georgia, and Bama, Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's going to be amazing. But looking at Oklahoma, I never thought I'd see the day. Now I know their head coach. I know years being the Clemson defensive coordinator. I know he's gonna, as soon as he gets there, he's going to immediately instill a defense that Lincoln Riley never did, never could. I never in my life thought I'd see the day where Oklahoma has a very good defense, because they do. They have a very good defense. Their offense struggles. Their offense is not very good, and that is an Oklahoma team that my mind can't fathom.
Yeah, I mean, 222 yards total, 186. Again, kind of the same story as the last game we talked about, the lack of a rushing attack for Boomer Sooner. They only had 36 rushing yards. That's just impossible to overcome against like you said, a dominant Tennessee defense. And to just encapsulate how good Tennessee's defense played, they held Boomer Sooner to 3 for 15 on third down, 1 for 3 on fourth down, forced 2 fumbles, 1 interceptions. It seemed the Volunteers had the boys rattled in Norman, Oklahoma, and they took care of business. But I think the most impressive thing is Nico didn't have his Heisman performance we've seen week in, week out to start this year. Only 194 yards, 1 touchdown. You said it, Tanner. Oklahoma finally has a defense. I guess you got to trade one for the other. I mean, Nico, 194 yards passing, 15 yards rushing. We've seen him do it on both sides with his legs and with his arms. So if you're Oklahoma, you just need to get that offensive attack going that we've seen year in, year out from Oklahoma, and we're just not seeing it this year.
Yeah, and I think that just adds to how scary this team is. With Hendon Hooker, if Hendon Hooker throws 13 for 21 with 194 and a touchdown, they lose this game.
Yeah.
They never had the defense. This year they do. This team is well-rounded. They are scary, and they do need to clean it up, though. As you know, we like to point out the penalties. 10 penalties on Tennessee, so they need to clean it up. But still, I mean, just a really impressive win. A team that can finally, as I've said multiple times, can win in multiple ways, and they are scared.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, we have a game with a common theme has been they can't get the rushing attack going. Tanner, Michigan, known for their rushing attack, absolutely dominated on the ground. Only had 32 yards passing. I know Iowa was playing. And 290 rushing. Welcoming USC to Big Ten ball. We're going to run it down your throat and try to stop us. And boy, they couldn't.
Yeah, this Michigan team is, as you said, feels a lot like an Iowa team. An Iowa team of their offensive line and running back were 5 stars. I mean, you know what I mean? It's a beefed up Iowa team, and 12 passing attempts is all they needed to beat USC. They added a defensive touchdown in there, of course, a very Iowa thing to do. I mean, their 2 running backs, they combined for 159 for one, 74 for the other, 240 some odd rushing yards between the 2 of them, 3 touchdowns, just dominant. Yeah. And we had our questions about USC. Is this defense good enough? We saw them play well against LSU, and start thinking this USC team might be pretty good, depending on how that defense is. It's definitely better.
Well, yeah, anything's better than nothing,
it's
right?
Definitely better. But yeah, seriously. But this is proof. Not only does the defense need to get better, but it seems like if USC is going to compete in this Big Ten for years to come, they need to get bigger.
Yeah. They're still playing West Coast ball, and that's not going to fly in the Big Ten, simply put. I mean, I don't got anything else left on this one.
I will just say the one thing for USC, because I still think they're the more talented team. I think most people think that the killer was the pick six.
Yep.
The killer was the pick six. And you just can't have big turnovers like that, especially ones we all know the struggles of Michigan's offense, ones that immediately lead to points instead of making that offense come out and earn it. So that was the soul crushing one. But yeah, I don't. I'm selling a little USC stock after this just because I don't think they're big enough defensively and in the trenches. But I'm not necessarily buying any Michigan stock from this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I still think, there's plenty of flaws in this Michigan team. You saw them throw for 12 passes. Orgy didn't look good. But any last thoughts on this one, Tanner?
Not really, man. Just I think USC's got some work to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a Big Ten team.
And a shocking game coming into the Big 12. It seems this is the week of their new conference debuts as Utah goes into Stillwater for their Big 12 debut and walk out of a Stillwater with a big win, 22-19. Tanner, talk to me. The Utes were out without Cam Rising, and they still managed to get it done despite pretty bad quarterback play.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They're without Cam. At this point, when are they with Cam Rising?
Yeah,
right?
He's going to be playing, and then I think he still has one more year.
I'm sure.
Which is insane.
He probably's got 3 more years.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. But one thing about this game, I was impressed with Utah. This game wasn't really that close. You look at the score, 22-19, feels like a barn burner. Utah kind of dominated this game, and the stats kind of show that. Utah nearly doubled up their yardage, 456 for Utah, 285 for Oklahoma State. Absolutely dominant in the rushing game, which is, again, I think we've had this conversation before. We talked about Oklahoma State. How are they being outrushed? Because Ollie Gordon, we all know, one of the better backs in the college football. How is this happening? Why is this happening? They had 48 rushing yards.
I don't get.
Guess how many Utah had?
A lot more than that.
249.
Yeah, Micah Bernard, dog. He had 182 alone.
101 more rushing yards. That is where this game was won. And we all know what happens with the rush game comes domination in time of possession. Simply put, Oklahoma State didn't have the ball for that long. That's why this felt so dominant. Utah had the ball for 42 minutes. 42 and a half minutes.
Wow.
Oklahoma State, 17 and a half minutes.
Wow. I didn't know it was that bad, but
hard to score when you don't have the ball.
Yeah, with that in mind, that explains this game in a perfect way. Just when you don't have the ball, you can't score. Deshaun Stribling, he is my player of the week. Last week, had 7 catches, 174, 2 touchdowns in the previous matchup. This week, 3 receptions, 50 yards. You mentioned Ollie Gordon. This guy was a kind of the Heisman front runner going into this year. And he has done absolutely nothing through these first couple games. Alan Bowman lit it up last week, 16 for 33, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But yeah, it just seemed Utah took care of the ball, dominated time of possession, didn't give the explosive Oklahoma State offense time to score. Their defense played well. This team's a problem, and they don't even have their quarterback, but it's not something they're not used to.
Right. That's the thing. Right now, we're going to try and play the game. Oh, when is Cam Rising coming back? Again, America's favorite game. We've been playing it for 8 years now. It just seemingly, but who knows when he's coming back. But yeah, I was impressed with Utah for sure. And Okie State, not sure I'm in on them. It's it feels like they had losing to Utah. They needed an absolute miracle to beat Arkansas at home. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They got a tough test next week.
They do. We'll actually be talking about that game later, but moving on to game everyone tunes in for, Iowa, Minnesota, coming off last year's game, the controversial fair catch call, which I saw about 1,000 times in this college football season. But the Hawkeyes walk into Minneapolis, kick some ass, walk out with Floyd, and wrap a little bow on this week with a big win, 31-14.
Yeah, on today's episode of Why the Hell Can't Iowa Play Two Good Halves of Football, we have another game in which going into halftime, we were like, uh-oh, this sucks. And then the second half was absolutely dominant. I don't know what it is. Every single game, they were up 6-0 on Illinois State. An FCS team won the second half 34-0 against Iowa State. Dominant in the first half. Iowa State had like 30 yards of total offense. What happens? Iowa State dominates the second half. Troy, they're losing at halftime. Bluebirds are out in Kinnick Stadium. They dominate the second half. And now Minnesota, down at halftime, come out, dominate the second half, win that 24-0, Sam. It's getting a little frustrating as to how they can't put two halves of football together, but this second half was some of the best football I've seen Iowa play in a very long time. And I know we're going to look at Caden McNamara with 62 yards passing and their inability to throw the ball. Simply put, if Tim Lester called a pass play, I was yelling at my TV saying, why the hell are you passing the ball? That's how dominant this offensive line was and this running game was. I mean, obviously, the story of this, Kaleb Johnson is absolutely unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The nation's leading rusher was so coming into the week and certainly helped his case this week. We'll have definitely more on the stats later, but the running game was dominant. The offense will need to be more balanced in the coming games because you're probably not going to be able to just run all over teams like they did to Minnesota. But I tell you what, Sam, we talk about this offense, and yeah, they've definitely struggled a bit at times. But you look at this Iowa body of work now, obviously, yes, the big blemish losing to Iowa State, but they've scored 40, 19, tough, 38, and 31. And I can't remember the last time Iowa scored 30-plus in a conference game.
Yeah.
So, we're all frustrated with the offense. I get it. It did not look good, specifically in that Iowa State game is when I was lowest on the offense. But multiple games 30-plus, one game 40-plus, and again, doing it with conference opponents, it's the best the Iowa offense has looked in years.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Kaleb Johnson looked absolutely unstoppable. That 40-yard run up the gut where it seemed like it was going to be a 30-yard loss turned into a 4-yard touchdown. This dude is a dog. We need to be. He needs to be in that Heisman talk. Honestly, Tanner, he is what everybody thought Ollie Gordon was going to be doing this season. But I'm still not 100% confident in this Iowa team. I mean, the defense really didn't look super dominant as we've seen in years past. You mentioned Cade McNamara. I've given up on him. I'm officially out on Cade McNamara.
Breaking news. Sam is out on Cade McNamara.
It seems every time Brandon Sullivan's on the field, we score. So let's just give that a go. But yeah, Iowa looked really freaking good. Hopefully, we can carry it over these next couple weeks. We got a tough one coming up. But yeah, this is a big confidence in our running game. We talked about it kind of in the past. Our offensive line, which has always been a strong suit for Iowa, we send offensive linemen year in, year out. We haven't in the past couple of years, but it seems like we're finally getting that offensive line core group, and they are looking really freaking good, Tanner.
Yep, seems like they're starting to gel, starting to get real momentum, as you said. And I have the Cade McNamara thing, man. I just can't. The thought process you say when Sullivan comes in, they put Sullivan in when they're in the red zone, and if you think Sullivan is the best chance for Iowa to get 5 yards and get in the end zone, don't you think Sullivan would be the best chance to get 5 yards, whether you're at the 40 or the 30 or the 20? Like, that line of thinking to me doesn't make a ton of sense. I too would like to see Sullivan get at least a drive instead of just 2 plays in the red zone. I think obviously the reason he's put in the red zone is because of his legs. He is an absolute dual threat quarterback. He's dynamic with his feet. Something obviously Cade McNamara is an absolute statue back there. I think adding that for a whole drive, Tim Lester can really start to cook with its design quarterback rollouts and quarterback draws, and mixing that with the traditional run game. I think that could get really interesting. But we'll never know because we're going to stick with Cade, which definitely. I don't get it either. And again, you heard on this podcast about a month ago me saying how Cade was not amazing, but pretty good last year before he got hurt, except for that Penn State game, which the whole offense was bad. But he was certainly be an upgrade over Deacon Hill, which obviously. But as a Cade defender, I'm starting to get the calls for Sullivan, and it doesn't seem it's not baseless. That's the thing I don't like though, is when calls for the backup quarterback are baseless. We literally see this guy come in and score touchdowns in the red zone constantly. Mm-hmm. And again, that thought process of he's our best chance to get in the end zone. Well, he's probably your best chance to get yards when you're at the 40 then. And yeah, I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me, but the Iowa offense is rolling. And now talking about the defense, you mentioned it. They're really hard to figure out because, again, the second half was dominant. They were completely dominant in the second half, similarly to the first half against Iowa State. It's the lapses, man. It's the deep ball to the Iowa State player, the 2 deep balls to the Troy player. And in this game, Minnesota had 2 drives where they looked unstoppable and then got nothing the rest of the game.
Yeah.
The defense looked very good in the first quarter, looked terrible in the second quarter, and then looked absolutely dominant in the third and fourth. How does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's definitely confusing with this defense, especially secondary, because it seems like everyone talks about how good this secondary was. Obviously, lost Cooper DeJean. That is what it is, but not great. Look, they need to clean it up on the lapses, for sure. But any final thoughts on this game?
We're talking about the problems of the offense, talking about problems of the defense. It was definitely overall positive. Anytime you can go on the road, rivalry game, and kind of shut the door, and in reality, the last quarter was a laugher. It wasn't close. So that's where we sit.
Yeah,
and I think it's definitely one to build on. I'm a little mad at the schedule because I think if we could, coming off of this game, if we could parlay that into playing Washington, playing Michigan State, Northwestern, those are very winnable games. Instead, coming off the high of this, we have a bye, and then we have to play Ohio State. So it's going to be 3 weeks till we have a winnable game. So we can't really build on this momentum, which kind of sucks. But, it's going to be interesting how they come out against Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that one, to say the least. But you ready to talk some NFL, Tanner?
Of course.
Dive right into it. Game nobody really expected to be good, but turned out to be a good one, Tanner. The Giants go to Cleveland 21-15. I think we have our answer to who might be the worst contract this year.
This was a contract off.
I think it's Deshaun Watson. He looked freaking terrible. This Browns team looks terrible. They are desperate for Nick Chubb to come back, but talk to me about this one.
Yeah, like you said, this was a contract off. I mean, the Giants obviously won. That doesn't tell the whole story. Daniel Jones drastically outplayed Deshaun Watson in this game. Daniel Jones, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson, 196 and 2 touchdowns. Daniel Jones was much more efficient, 24 for 34 versus 21 for 37. Our boy John Fanta has moved beyond ticked, and now he's laughing at the situation. Yeah, it's if I am in that Cleveland Browns locker room, I don't know how I can continue to go out and put faith in number 4. As long as they continue to trot him out, this team is going to struggle. And that's just the nature. As John Fanta said, he can't play. Accept it. Stop making excuses for him. He just flat out can't play. And it's a shame because I fully believe the Cleveland Browns have a top 10 roster on, they have a top 10 roster, period. That defense is nasty. They're insane. Amari Cooper is a good wide receiver. I mean, Jerry Jeudy, we talked about him, whether he struggled, but he's like a 2 or 3 here. Like, it's a good spot for him behind the Cooper. Like, this is a good football team, and they're being absolutely tore down by really poor quarterback play, and really poor quarterback play that costs an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
And that's a shame. And I don't know. I mean, it's a shame for the Browns, and it's a shame that he gets paid so much money. It's not a shame that he sucks. But it's a shame he gets paid a lot of money. It's a shame for the Browns because Browns fans deserve to have a good football team after what they've been through the past, 50 years.
Yeah.
So all of that is a shame. But looking at the Giants, I think Malik Neighbors might be good.
Yeah. He's pretty damn good.
I think Malik Neighbors might be good. 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think this is kind of what you want to see if you're a Giants fan. Just have a team that can play some games. Maybe you'll win a few and you'll enjoy it as a fan. But the real, the real prize would be keep Malik Neighbors happy, establish him as the number 1 wide receiver, and build through the draft because obviously Daniel Jones doesn't seem to be their long-term answer at this moment. And it seems like a quarterback could be coming for New York soon. And I mean, they won, obviously, and you'd think that would tank their draft stock. However, as we mentioned, the Panthers also won. So things are looking a little bit interesting for that number 1 spot. Granted, we're only 3 weeks in, but good for the Giants is what I'm going to say here. Good for the Giants.
Absolutely. Good win for the Giants. Finally got in the W column. But Tanner, your Minnesota Vikings are on a tear this year, exceeding everyone's expectation. At this point, Tanner, you had the Vikings at 1-2 with a win over the Giants, 2 L's to the 49ers and Texans. They now sit at 3-0. Sam Darnold looks amazing. Talk about a revival. 34-7. Your Vikings win. Talk to me.
We are at, I'm going to go DEFCON 2 because we are at dangerous levels of belief here, Sam. We are at dangerous levels. This is awesome. This is freaking awesome. They've won big games before. You remember in 2022, when they beat the Bills, the game of the year. That was their statement win. Well, what happened in that statement when they came back from 17 points down with a 90-yard run from Dalvin Cook and Josh Allen had to fumble at the goal line? The flukiest of all the flukes.
Yeah.
In this game, they took it to San Francisco, or they took it to the Giants, obviously. They took it to San Francisco. It ended up being a one-possession game, but Aaron Jones fumbled at the goal line. Had he not, he would have walked in to put Minnesota up 27-7. And now they absolutely took it to the Texans. This is what really good teams do. And when I talk about my belief, it all seems repeatable. We've seen Justin Jefferson put up big numbers, whether it's Kirk Cousins or Nick Mullins, now Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold doesn't have to be Superman. He's throwing to wide open receivers. Has time in the pocket because this is an experienced offensive line that's playing well and played well last year. This defense is getting pressure after pressure after pressure. Minnesota's not relying on some guy named Patrick Jones to go out and be Superman. You know what they're relying on Patrick Jones to do? Play on third down and do his job once every 5 snaps. And what happens? He has 4 sacks on the year because he's playing his role. He doesn't need to be Superman. Year after year, they try and say, well, what if what's his name takes a step up? What if what's his name plays 40 snaps a game? They don't need to do that. They have depth. People can play their position. And all of this seems very repeatable, which is the scary part and the part that has me with so much belief. Oh, and by the way, they don't have Jordan Addison or TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah. This team looks really freaking good. You kind of nailed it, Tanner. Sam Darnold doesn't have to be Superman. I think that perfectly encapsulates how the Vikings season is going. I mean, it's amazing. You kind of mentioned it earlier that how much coaching has an impact on a player. I think this perfectly encapsulates Sam Darnold. He finally got his opportunity where he's not a part of the worst NFL franchise in recent history, if not NFL history. But he is playing well. As you kind of mentioned, Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, those 2 weapons on offense. But I think we need to highlight this defense more. I mean, this Houston Texans team somehow, some way got better this offseason. Cam Akers is about the same as their last, but they had Nico Collins-Tangdale last year. They picked up Stephon Diggs, who obviously isn't the player what he was in the past, but he's still a really good wide receiver 1, especially when you match him with guys like Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz, all these weapons, and they could not get anything going. This is probably the worst game, if not the worst game I've seen from CJ Stroud. I mean, he looked so uncomfortable. The Vikings defense put him in uncomfortable situation, making him throw irrational throws, led to 2 picks, struggled on third down. I think that perfectly encapsulates how dominant this Vikings defense. Obviously, we could talk about their offense all day, but really when it comes down to it, this Vikings defense is the truth. Brian Flores is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL right now, and he's proving it week in, week out. And it's truly impressive. I mean, I can't say enough about this Vikings team right now. Definitely not where I saw this season starting out.
Believe it or not, me neither, man. And it just feels different from everything because, yes, Sam Darnold has had good starts before, but Sam Darnold has never had as good of a head coach as he has now. He's never had as good a talent as he has now. He's never had all of that together. So it makes you think, again, this can be repeated. The Vikings have had really good starts to a season with a lesser known quarterback. They did it with Sam Bradford one year. They did it with obviously Case Keenum. The difference is obviously Sam Darnold was a number 1 draft pick. The talent was never the question with Sam Darnold. Talent was a huge question with Case Keenum.
Yeah.
Which Sam Bradford obviously was a number 1 draft pick as well, but health was mainly his issue. But specifically that Case Keenum thing, like talent was the main issue. That's not the case with Darnold. It was always his brain, his mentals, whether he was making the right decisions. The talent was always there. So it's, as from the Minnesota side of things, he will continue to supply the talent, it seems. And it's just in the defense, again, Minnesota's had good stretches before on defense, but they're not relying on, again, Patrick Jones, on let's go Mekhi Blackman, on, you know who these guys are?
Nope.
My thoughts exactly that these guys were relied upon to play starter minutes to play. Jeez, the Jaguars are getting absolutely destroyed right now, but they were relied upon
halftime
34-3, not even halftime, but they were relied upon to play starter snaps, to play 40 snaps a game, rep after rep after rep. Now who are they relying on? Jonathan Grenard, who had 12 sacks last year. Andrew Van Ginkel, who's been an elite and who's been a NFL player for a very long time. Stephon Gilmore, who's a future Hall of Famer, like Byron Murphy, who had multiple great years in Arizona. These are vets, man. You can afford to pay these guys because you're not paying who's under center, and you're getting similar output between the two. It's just I can't say enough about how well this team is put together. And again, the buzzword with this Vikings team, at least from a Vikings fan, where all of this has happened before, it's the repeatability, and I think it's high, and that's why I'm just so in on it. And I think that's why a lot of Vikings fans are so in on it.
Yeah, absolutely. They look red hot to start the year. Now, a team that is trending in the complete other direction, the Cowboys. Face off against the Ravens. I mentioned this being a must win for the Ravens. And to be honest, Tanner, the Cowboys defense ain't it this year. Holy shit. Sorry, Mom. They're awful, Tanner. I don't understand. I mean, when was the last time you saw 450 plus yards?
In an NFL game, it's been a long time. Well, we might see it here.
Yeah, actually, that's true. That is true. But I mean, you look at the offensive side of things, the Cowboys didn't play awful. I mean, their rushing attack was nowhere to be found, but when you have Rico Dowdle, Ezekiel Elliott, and Deuce Vaughn, you gotta expect that. But Dak Prescott played pretty well. 28-51. That's a lot of attempts. 379 yards, 2 touchdowns. But if you look at just the paper side, it seems this game was a lot closer. Lamar Jackson did his thing, 12 for 15, 182 yards, 1 touchdown, 87 rushes, 1 touchdown. Derrick Henry just came alive this game, of course, against the Cowboys, because why not? 25 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, this game is a little closer, looks a little closer, but the Ravens were dominant all game. The Cowboys did make a nice little comeback there in the fourth quarter, but surprise, surprise, this Swiss cheese defense couldn't get a single stop, and there's a lot of question marks with this Cowboys team, especially on that defensive end, especially when your 2 best players on defense are arguing on the sidelines, Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, 2 of our key players on defense, yelling at each other on the sidelines. I mean, I don't know where you go from here as a Cowboys fan, honestly, man.
So you're not loving Mike Zimmer?
No, I feel your pain.
Can't blame you there, buddy. But
defensive mind, I heard.
yeah, his last few coaching jobs, he's had terrible defenses. But I think now I'm going to say kind of my piece about the Cowboys, and I have questions for you. I think from where I sit, and now this is a take that I can't own. I saw someone have it, and I could not agree with it more. This is a Cowboys team that I think got worse from last year to this year. And the main problem with that is not only they get worse, they got more expensive.
Yep.
And this was a take about, I didn't say his name. It was Mike Greenberg from ESPN.
Yeah.
I think this is a fantastic take of his. And again, I'm just reiterating his take because I loved it so much. But the problem from his point of view and now my point of view is that it's the team seems to be horribly mismanaged, meaning, you know why they didn't get Derrick Henry? Because it seems to me like they could use Derrick Henry on their
just
team.
a little bit.
Just a little bit. And he said he wanted to go there. We talked at length about how perfect a fit it was. You know why they didn't get Derrick Henry? Because they didn't know their cap situation. Why didn't they know their cap situation? Because they hadn't signed their players yet. Now, I know players have lengthy. I mean, of course, the Vikings did it with Justin Jefferson. You have extension negotiations. It happens all the time. I get it. But it seems like we all knew CD and Dak were going to stay with the Cowboys a long time ago. I think most people knew that. But also, we talk about Jefferson and the Vikings. They got theirs done in the offseason. They didn't get theirs done at the 11th hour before the first game starts. Like, the whole thing with the NFL cap, as we all know, the statement, the cap isn't real. You can manipulate it like no other if you just know what your situation is. Yeah. The Cowboys didn't. If they had signed Dak Prescott, if they had signed CeeDee Lamb, they absolutely could have signed Derrick Henry, moved that money around, and they would be a much better football team right now. But instead, Jerry Jones and ownership and management, they just waited. I don't know. They thought they were better than they were. If they were, I don't know. But they waited too long. Now they ended up having to pay their guys. They didn't know their cap situation. They couldn't really add in free agency at all. So their team got worse. Their team got more expensive, and that is not at all a recipe for success. And I think that is 100% on Jerry Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. Jerry Jones.
Again, shout out Mike Greenberg.
Yeah. I totally agree with everything he said, and your reiteration of it. I think you nailed it on the head. So it's going to be interesting to see how this Cowboys season plays out from here on out, because it's not looking very bright in the future.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, Sam, you're in your house, right? You're watching football.
Yep.
Where's the panic button? You're in your living room watching football. Is the panic button upstairs? Is it in the attic? Is it in the basement? Is it in the kitchen? Is it sitting right next to you? Where's the panic button?
I don't think it's sitting right next to me. I mean, it only is we're going into week 4. I think this next week, I'd say right now it's in the kitchen drawer.
In the kitchen drawer.
In the kitchen drawer.
Accessible but put away.
Accessible but put away. I mean, we beat the pulse out of the Browns, but the freaking Giants beat them. So it looked like a lot better win when we did it, but it turns out the Browns suck. The Saints absolutely demolished us. The Ravens, like I said, looks a lot closer than it actually was. They kicked our ass. if we don't come out next week and beat the brakes off of the Giants, I'm hitting that button.
Okay.
Because, I mean, after the Giants, you got the Steelers who look pretty damn good with Justin Fields at quarterback. Now will Mike Tomlin screw it up and for some reason put in Russell Wilson? I don't think he will, but there are talks about that. The Lions, who look good, and then you have a bye. Then you got at San Francisco. They'll probably have some of their players back at that point. At Falcons, who should beat the Chiefs this week. Eagles is always tough. Texans, it's a tough little stretch there for the Cowboys. It's going to be interesting how we play. But yeah, it's getting a little panicky for sure.
Gotcha. So this week's a must win.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, now how much of that, I'm curious, like let's say you play the Chiefs next week. Would it still be a must win, or is this a must win because you're playing the Giants?
I think it's a must win because you play the Giants. Okay. For sure.
And then now I also want to know what is the win margin of victory that keeps you from pressing the panic button? Because right now I'm seeing they're 4.5-point favorites. If they win by a touchdown, panic button or no?
Panic button.
2 touchdowns.
Comfortable, but hovering over that button.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Okay, like
so you want another 40-0 last year?
Yeah. I'd take 17. 17, I'm comfortable.
Okay. Wow. All right.
So, yeah, it's if it's even close, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm gonna be ticked as John Fanta. Not laughing quite yet, but it could get there. But
gotcha.
Hey, we have Dak, so except Dak's not the problem. I will say that Dak is not the problem. It's the fact we signed 40-year-old fat Ezekiel Elliott when we could have gotten perhaps top 2 running back in the NFL. But hey, we got Zeke, so that's good enough. But moving on, let's talk about this game. The 49ers kind of on a slide to start the season, obviously plagued with injuries, but they lose to the Rams. And drop to 1-2, 27-24. Talk to me about this one, man.
Yeah, the 49ers, I think I'm leaning towards that button a little bit too. Injuries go one of two ways. You can either be like, no, I'm not worried because they're so injured and they almost won. And, once they get healthy, this team will be good again, whatever. But the injuries are why I'm leaning towards it. I mean, they're down a lot of guys. Obviously, Debo, CMC are the main ones. And Kittle's out. Those are the main ones. But like Brandon Ayuk has been nowhere to be found this season. Nowhere. So that's a huge issue. Without Debo, that's a huge issue. Jordan Mason obviously has been excellent to start the season. But with all the injuries this team has, they play a division winner schedule. That's a little scary. And, obviously the game against Minnesota, I mentioned the Aaron Jones fumble. Like, they kind of got popped in the mouth, and that happens. You go in there, you get popped in the mouth. If you're a good team, it happens. I put less stock in it than when you're up 14-0 in the first quarter and you blow it.
Yeah.
To a Rams team that is more injured than you. Like, you're injured, but the Rams are the number 1 most injured team in football, and they beat you after you had the 14-0 lead in the first quarter. That's scary stuff. I don't really know what to think of this Niners team right now, but that panic button is inching closer and closer, and I'm trying to find their upcoming schedule because, they're missing these guys, and next week they play the Patriots.
Yeah.
And then the Cardinals, who look better than the Seahawks. So the schedule isn't the toughest in the road ahead, but after the Seahawks, they have the Chiefs and the Cowboys back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
So it gets tougher at that point. Will they be healthy? I don't know. Can they win these kind of more cupcake games? I don't know, but I'm a little nervous if I'm a 49ers fan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Brock Purdy isn't as good as it. Um,
Oh,
but yeah, it's honestly, I think this game came down to who has the better quarterback, Tanner. Of course, it's if you look at the stats, you would say Brock Purdy, but Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback. He's playing without his one and two wide receiver, in Puka and
yeah,
Cooper Cup.
their leading scorer was some guy named Tutu Atwell.
Dude, what you know about Tutu Atwell?
He had 4 receptions for 93 yards.
Nice, dude. Nice. But yeah, dude, this game was weird. But I mean the Rams somehow pulled it off. It's just seeing these two teams both 1-2 is kind of crazy.
It is crazy. It is definitely crazy. The 49ers and the Ravens are both 1-2. And the Cowboys, they're 1-2.
Hell yeah.
It's crazy what we're in right now with the Steelers and the Vikings 3-0.
Yeah.
And the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Ravens all 1-2. Just like we all predicted, right?
At least the Panthers are still they have
They're 1-2.
Yikes.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Well, I'm gonna go out on a limb. The Jags are 0-3.
The Jags.
I'm gonna go out on them.
Now, what do you do if they Chargers this? If they come back like they did against the Chargers?
No. I don't even. Let's just not put that out there, Tanner.
Okay.
But yeah, any last thoughts on this one or week 3 in general for the NFL?
I think it's time to talk about some players of the week. What do you think?
Let's get right into it, Tanner. Who is your player of the week?
Yeah, man. So for college, I assume we're starting with college.
Start with college.
College player of the week. We talked about him a little bit, man. It's really hard to describe just how dominant this guy was. So I'm going to try and let the stats do the talking. I don't think we read them, but it was a game we talked about, and that, of course, is going to be Kaleb Johnson. He is the nation's leading rusher for a reason. In this game, he had 21 carries for 206 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was absolutely dominant. He was the spark that led this Iowa offense, specifically in the third quarter when they outscored Minnesota 17-0. Sam, he was unbelievable, constantly finding holes. For reference about his efficiency, Iowa's backup running back, Jauan Patterson, he had 18 carries. Kaleb had 21. So a 3 carry difference, but a 140-yard difference.
Yeah.
That's how efficient Kaleb was. And he didn't really play the fourth quarter either because he was cramping. So he limped off the field at one point. Of course, everyone kind of panicked a little bit, but it was just cramps. He's okay. But in a game that was kind of out of hand, and Minnesota's offense, specifically in that second half, was not playing well at all. They were just like, yeah, let's give it to Jauan Patterson and solve this game away. So he could have had a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
If he played in that fourth quarter. That's how dominant he was. He deserves to be my player of the week, man. He was unbelievable. And again, the nation's leading rusher. Let's get the KJ4 Heisman train rolling.
Yeah. I mean, we could spend a whole episode on how dominant this guy has been for the Hawkeyes. The only light in this offense. So we love having him. Haven't seen a running back like this. Jeez. Obviously, Akram Wadley's comes to mind, but honestly, Tanner, I think we're looking at Sean Green type level. I mean, this dude is unbelievable. Sean Green was in the Heisman talks for a long time there when he was at Iowa. Kaleb Johnson right there with him.
Yeah, and obviously we talked about this game. I don't want to harp on it too much, but I can tell you what I think was one of the more important plays of the game, Sam. The first touchdown Iowa scored in the second half, they were down 7 at that point. It was a 3rd and 10 in the red zone. And Tim Lester, again, I don't know if this was a balls of steel call or if this was a let's just run the ball and take 3 call.
Yeah.
But an obvious passing down, turn and hand it to Kaleb Johnson. 15. It was 3rd and 10 from the 15. He got in the end zone. Crazy call, but Kaleb Johnson did it all himself. And that, again, if that game is 14-10 instead of 14-14 after that long drive Iowa went on, we're really looking at a different game, I think. So that was the biggest play, and it was Kaleb Johnson who made it.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that applies to my college football player of the week. I'm going to go with the Navy midshipman quarterback, Blake Horvath. Here, did you see this guy's stat?
I did not.
9 for 12 passing. They played Memphis, put up like 56. So, Horvath went 9 for 12 passing, 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. Right there for a Navy quarterback is insane. Let's look at what Navy does best. The triple option.
Yes.
12 carries, 211 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Oh, my goodness.
So my guy had 6 touchdowns and over 400 yards by himself.
That's nuts. I mean, what? So our players of the week had 400. You said 211?
Yeah, 211.
417 rushing yards and 7 rushing touchdowns and then 2 additional throwing touchdowns.
Yeah. That ain't bad. That is not bad. He looked absolutely incredible against Memphis, who beat FSU last week. Turns out FSU is garbage, but hey, they got a dub. So, but yeah, Blake Horvath, Kaleb Johnson, definitely deserving of this week's college football players of the week. But
by the way, Sam,
go ahead.
Don't look now. The Commanders have a 21-10 lead on the Bengals.
Burrow washed, some are saying.
Burrow might be washed.
Some are saying, but Taryn, let's flip it over to NFL Player of the Week. Who you got here?
Yeah, this one's gonna be weird because I think I'm doing something I don't think I've done before, Sam, and I'm picking a Player of the Week on a team that didn't win their game. Right? Seems a little backwards. However, I think this guy clearly had the best week of anybody. And it's a game we just got finished talking about. We're talking about the 49ers pressing the panic button. And one name I intentionally left out, and I assume you did as well, because Jauan Jennings, man, what an absolute game this guy had. We're talking about no Debo. Where is Ayuk? Ayuk was nowhere. But Jauan Jennings was here. He played his heart out, of course, only to lose. But Jauan had 11 receptions on 12 targets, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And again, I'd feel much better about this if it was in a 49ers win. I feel weird about it, but he was just the best player this weekend, so he's got to win the award.
Yeah.
Jauan Jennings.
Absolutely. That was the guy I was looking at. But let's make some more crunch time history, Tara. I'm going to pick a guy whose game isn't even over yet. Give me Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills with 12 minutes and 58 seconds in the third quarter. He
hasn't touched the ball in the second half yet, by the way.
He was 22 for 28, 247 yards passing, and 4 touchdowns. He added 3 carries for 22 yards. I'm happy if that's my quarterback at the end of the game. That's first half. So, Josh Allen, not even done yet. It could get crazier. But right now, he is sitting at my NFL Player of the Week.
I love that. Now, before we move on, I do want to share with you this little stat that I just found. Okay. Real quick, can you name who is the leader in touchdown passes in the NFL?
Sam Darnold.
That's correct. Who has the most passing yards in a single game in the NFL this season?
Andy Dalton?
It's not Andy Dalton. Someone passed for more yards than him this week.
Bo Nix.
This is a tough one. That's quite close. That's quite close. I'll give you one more guess.
So it's not Malik Willis.
That's a decent guess, but it is not. It is Kaleb Williams.
Really?
He had
What?
363 passing yards yesterday. 363.
Win?
Which is what?
Did they win?
No, they didn't. They lost.
Tough.
They lost to the Colts. And again, there's only one quarterback this year to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. We know who that is.
Dalton.
And then there's another quarterback who's undefeated. Justin Fields. Just as everyone predicted, right?
Yeah.
Darnold leading in touchdown passes. Andy Dalton is the only quarterback for 303 touchdowns. Kaleb Williams has the most passing yards in a single game.
Wow.
And Justin Fields is 3-0.
Especially the way Kaleb Williams started out this season. That's crazy.
Uh-huh. Welcome to the NFL in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But Tanner, you ready for some pick'em?
Of course, I'm always ready.
Welcome back on Jaron Kuykendall. He was on for the College World Series. He loves some football, so we decided to have him on. So stay tuned for that. And we now welcome on recurring guest Jaron Kuykendall. Jaron, thanks so much for coming on. You ready to make some picks, man?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, let's dive right into it. It is a great slate of college football this weekend. Let's kick it off. 20 Oklahoma State versus 23 Kansas State, both coming off some tough games. Jaron, who you got?
I'm a big believer in Avery Johnson, so I'm gonna have to go with Kansas State. I think they have a good roster, and I really like them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I can't say I really like them. As you said, they're off of some pretty rough weeks. But I agree. I'm going with Kansas State as well. They're home. Avery Johnson. I mean, they've played well at home so far this year. One game was against UT Martin, but they absolutely took control and took care of Arizona at home. And I think they will do the same with Oklahoma State, a team that we just got done talking about. I'm not very high on Oklahoma State this year, so give me Kansas State at home.
Not so fast, you two. Give me the Pokes. I think this is the week Ollie Gordon finally gets going. It's got to happen some point. I don't believe in K-State's defense. I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair, but give me Oklahoma State here. Next matchup, we got 15 Louisville going into South Bend, taking on the Golden Domes of Notre Dame. Jaron, who you got?
All right. I know it's a home game for Notre Dame, but give me Louisville. I don't believe in Notre Dame this year, and especially after that game that they lost to who was it?
Lost to Northern Illinois.
Yeah, I don't believe in them at all. It was a fluke of a game, but still, they're just not a good team.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm going to say not so fast. Notre Dame at home. I think Northern Illinois. It's kind of cliche whenever a good team loses a game or survives a team they should blow out and they barely win. It's the wake up call they needed. But since that game, Notre Dame has looked very good, outscoring opponents 84-10. So I think I'm going to go with Notre Dame at home. It should be a great game, though. I mean, Louisville has looked good this year. They did lose Jake Plummer from last year, but again, they've looked good so far this year. But give me the Domers at home.
Didn't you pick Purdue to cover?
Nope, definitely not. Don't know.
But I'm with you, Jaron. I like this Louisville team. I feel like they are a team no one is talking about. They've come out red hot on all cylinders on offense, especially 62 points, 49-31. This obviously is their first kind of true test going into South Bend, never an easy task, but I like Louisville here. And probably the best game of the college football slate, number 2, Georgia going down to Tuscaloosa to take on the Tide. Jaron, who you got?
This might differ from a lot of people, but I'm going to go with Alabama to win. And the reason why, I really like Jalen Milroe. I like what Kalen DeBoer is doing with that offense surrounding him. They have a really good wide receiver core. Ryan Williams, I'm huge on him. He's 17 years old, but I think he's going to show out this game. Give me Alabama.
I tell you what, I think that's a great pick, and I'm going with Bama too. I think it's been a while since Tuscaloosa has hosted a game of this magnitude in the regular season, and I think Tuscaloosa is going to show out. They want to prove to the college football world that they're still the Bama we know and love. There's still college football still runs through Tuscaloosa and not through Athens. So I like Alabama here. Ryan Williams, excuse me. Did you know he was 17? I'm just learning of this now. Yeah, he's really freaking good. Jalen Milroe, we all know him too. I agree. Give me the Tide at home.
That is 3 World Tides.
Oh, wow.
Give me Bama.
Surely this will end well.
We're all going to be wrong.
Honestly, and I think these two teams match up well, but in the most important position at quarterback, I'm taking Jalen Milroe over Carson Beck. I have not been impressed with Carson Beck all season, even in the blowout. He just hasn't looked like a Georgia dominant quarterback. So give me Bama. Wow, was not expecting all to go with the Tide there. But moving on, we go to Big Ten country as Illinois travels to Penn State, a whiteout game. Jaron, who you got?
My gut's telling me to go with Illinois, but it is at Penn State, whiteout game. I think they showed a lot last week against a very good Nebraska team. And what was it, double overtime? But give me Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, I just got done talking about how, as you said, how impressed I was with Illinois, how impressed I was with Luke Altmaier. They're not beating Penn State. Not in the whiteout game. It is not happening. Before the season, I was very critical about Drew Aller and how I didn't think he was all that good. And I think maybe Penn State could it be in for another season similar to how it was last year. Struggled on offense, was great on defense. He has shut me up and then some. They did have the scare against Bowling Green, which at this point looks like it may have been an anomaly. They look great in Morgantown against West Virginia. I like Penn State at home in the whiteout game.
That is another 3 for 3. I just think Happy Valley is going to be rocking, and it's going to cause Illinois some troubles. Give me Penn State here. Now we switch to the Sunday matchups. Tanner, your Vikings, Packers, both red hot, both shocking a lot of people so far this season. Are you still believing in your Vikes?
Man, I want to so bad. I've just seen this game play out so many times, and for some reason, the Vikings and the Packers can never see. One team never sweeps the series. They always split. Most of the time, it's a home and home thing. So I think this time, I think the Packers may get him at home. Jordan Love almost played last week. Who knows if that was a smokescreen, if he's actually healthy. Not sure. But there's a decent chance he plays. Obviously, at some point, the Vikings are due for some sort of regression, but so I think it may come here. But if you told me we'd be 3-1, 4 games in, beating the Niners, beating the Texans, I obviously would be over the moon. So I think the Packers win this.
Jaron.
I'm gonna have to go with the Vikings.
Yes,
I like what I've seen.
Yes, good pick, Jaron. Screw what I said.
I like what I've seen from Sam Darnold this year.
Me too.
I got to go with Justin Jefferson and the boys. I think Jordan Love's a great quarterback. If he's coming off an injury, I don't really know. I've never seen him in that kind of environment before. coming off of an injury. So I'm going with the Vikings. Yeah.
Fire me up, Jaron. Let's go.
I like that pick too. Give me the Vikings. I mean, I just raved about how good this defense has been. You give Malik Willis a chance in there. I think he hasn't faced a defense as good as the Vikings have looked this season. And then if Jordan Love gets a start coming off an injury against a very good defense, could cause some problems. Give me the Vikings here. Moving on. Eagles versus Buccaneers. Buccaneers dropped a tough one this week. Eagles. Yeah. Jaron, who you got here?
First and foremost, let me say I really like the Bucs. I love me some Baker Mayfield. Always have, always will. I think they have a good roster. They have a good wide receivers. And I'm a Cowboys fan, and it pains me to say this, but Saquon Barkley got it going last week. I think he's going to keep it rolling. He's got a good O-line. Jalen Hurts, that wide receiver core. I don't know if Devontae Smith, I don't think I've seen an update yet, but even if he's out, I'm taking the Eagles.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Not so fast, my friend. We're feeling a little bit different about these teams a week ago, and then now obviously the Bucs coming off of a week ago. They're coming off a win against the Lions. We were like, oh my gosh, this Bucs team's for real. Laid a stinker against the Broncos, and then Eagles, after blowing it to the Falcons, they get a win against the Red Hot Saints. However, I think you kind of mentioned the theme of the game for me. It's Devontae Smith. His status is up in the air. AJ Brown, another one who had missed some time. He was dealing with an injury. Did he play? And I don't think he played. In
AJ Brown didn't play.
He did not play last week, right? So the two top wide receivers dealing with injuries. Saquon Barkley got it going. I did, which is obviously a scary sight with that O-line. But Jalen Hurts has not gotten it going at all. No. He has been a turnover machine, and they won. And I think it was more of an indictment of the Eagles defense than the Eagles offense. I don't think the Eagles offense looked very good at all. And then the Bucs are returning home. I like the Bucs here. I think they have the bounce back game. Eagles, they did get the win over the Saints, which I didn't think they would do, but they didn't look all that good in my opinion. So I'm going, or except for Saquon, but I'm going with the Bucs.
I love that pick, Tanner. Give me Baker and the Bucs as for all the reasons you said. Moving on, we have a division matchup. Chiefs versus Chargers. Chargers led by their new coach, Jim Harbaugh. Jaron, who you got here?
I'm gonna have to go with the Chiefs. Every time I go against them, they always find a way to win in the weirdest ways, whether that be in the last 3 minutes, or just outright beat them the whole game. I'm gonna have to go with the Chiefs. I really like their offense. Their offense it's full of speed. Obviously Patrick Mahomes at the helm. He's the greatest quarterback in the league right now, and yeah.
It's that easy for me too. It's the Chiefs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, I don't think has played all that well to start the season. Travis Kelce has done nothing. They don't have Isaiah Pacheco, and they're still 3-0. They still find ways to win, whether it's Isaiah Likely's foot being too big, whether it's the Bengals cornerback running into the Chiefs player, or I think it was Rashee Rice, or maybe it was running into the receiver before the ball gets. I mean, they just find ways to win. You'll look at the Chargers side of things. Justin Herbert is questionable with his ankle. He left halfway through the game a week ago, and then I think both tackles are questionable as well. And I think there's a real possibility they play without Joe Burrow and without their two tackles. It's the
Justin
Chiefs.
Herbert.
What did I say?
Joe Burrow.
See, I'm watching the Bengals game. I said Joe Burrow. Justin Herbert without their two tackles. It's the Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree with all of y'all. With Justin Herbert in stats in the air and little zebra stripes on the Chiefs side, give me the Chiefs. Last game, we have the Bills versus the Ravens. The Bills absolutely kicking the crap out of the Jags, 37-10 as we speak. And then the Ravens coming off a big win over the Cowboys, kind of took care of business, like we said earlier. But Jaron, who you got here?
I think the Ravens look really good right now running the ball. They've always had a good defense. I don't think they completely shut down the Bills passing game, but I don't think the Bills win. I think the Ravens are going to continue the ground game dominance, and give me the Ravens.
Decent pick. Not so fast though. I am really in on this Bills team right now. They had a scare week 1, I know, but again, I think that is just an instance of the Cardinals being better than everyone thought they would be. Obviously, the Cardinals went on to put together, dominated the Rams, and they played the Lions okay. But anyway, I really like this Bills team. Absolutely eviscerated the Dolphins. I know Tua was injured for most of it, but while he was playing, he looked terrible. They're absolutely dismantling the Jaguars right now. I think the Bills are really good, and so I'm going to go with the Bills to win this. Go to 4-0 after they close out this win against the Jags. Give me the Bills.
That is a great pick. I just think in these close games we've seen with the Ravens, they have struggled to finish a job. I expect this game to be a close one, but give me the Bills on top. And that leaves the Superdog of the week. Tanner, we made a slight adjustment last week, and of course you hit the outright win. For those keeping track, I forgot to mention this at the start of Pick'em. Tanner has a 17-6 record. I have a 16-7. He is 2-1. With Superdogs, I'm 0-3. Yikes. 21 total points for 16 to mine. Brandon had a brutal week at 3-5. Missed the Superdogs. So we're going to see if Jaron does better. But Jaron, you have an opportunity for 3 extra points here. Who is your Superdog?
Arkansas going to Arlington to play Texas A&M has always just been a weird game. This year, I think Arkansas, not only do they cover, I think they outright win. Give me the Hogs in this game.
Wow, calling his shot. I love it. I like the pick, though. I was looking at that myself. I like it a lot. Tanner.
Yeah, definitely.
Where are you looking at?
Weird things happen in that game for sure. He stayed home in SEC country. I'm going to stay home with a huge asterisk because these are Big Ten teams. Wouldn't call this Big Ten country, however. Washington travels to Piscataway to take on Rutgers. Rutgers are 2.5-point favorites. I think we may be overrating Rutgers a little bit. They've started the season pretty well, but they haven't really played anybody. They did come off of a win against Virginia Tech. However, I think Virginia Tech just might be bad. So I'm going to go with Washington on the road to cover the 2.5. I think we may have overreacted to their loss in the Apple Cup. That game, very weird. As you said, rivalries get weird. They've taken care of business elsewhere. They handled Northwestern. I think they will do the same with Rutgers. Give me Washington. Give me Will Rogers, the former Bulldog, gets it done for the Huskies. Give me Washington plus 2.5.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think we are overrating the Scarlet Knights just a little bit. For my Superdog, I am going to Big 12 country. I picked against this team a lot last year, and it did me right, but I'm riding them with this week. Give me the Coach Prime. Colorado Buffalo Bills have 14 against UCF. Now, UCF, I saw, was the favorite to win the Big 12. They have not played anybody. They played New Hampshire, Sam Houston, and TCU. Not great opponents. They've looked dominant in all those except TCU. But one thing I know about Colorado is they put up points. And that's why I think Colorado's going to cover the 14 in at UCF. So give me the Buffaloes here. as my super dog for week 5.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, if we're in the trust tree, I looked at that. I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, that I feel like that is a lot of points. Hopefully it pans out better for me than last week when I took Arkansas State. But
One more time for KJ Jefferson to hurt you.
yeah. But all right, Jaron, give me your prediction. What is going to be your record this week?
Oh, I'm going undefeated.
He's going 8-0.
Undefeated.
8-0. Calling a shot. Arkansas wins. That'd be 11 points.
That'd be crazy.
That'd be crazy. That would be crazy.
That'd be wild. Jaron, what do you think he's going to go?
I think you're going to go. I think you're going to go 5-3.
5-3.
5-3.
I respect that.
5-3.
But that's going to wrap it up for Pick'em. Jaron, thank you so much for coming back on. We always love having you. Let's see how you doing, Pick'em. But thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me on. It was a blast.
Okay, thanks, Jaron.
Well, man, that was awesome. Let's see if Jaron can top Brandon's poor performance last week.
I'm sure he can.
And maybe
Deep grown tissue, man.
even top tissue, but we will have to stay tuned for that. Tanner, we have some questions to wrap up this episode. This first one comes from your mom, Tanner. After watching a lot of football on TV this weekend, she's just wondering, what is your least favorite sport to watch on TV? And she knows it isn't football.
Correct. It is not football. I happen to love football. If we're talking Big Four sports, which I don't think there's a bad one to watch in the Big Four sports. I know, obviously some people might disagree. I think my least favorite is certainly hockey of the 4 to watch, but I do enjoy watching some hockey, specifically some playoff hockey, as you all know from my reaction to Rangers games constantly on the pod. But if we're talking overall sport, I think every Iowan needs to close their ears because I personally cannot stand wrestling. And I'm gonna add in like combat with like the UFC and boxing and stuff. But any of the the main title fights in the card and the stuff that it's not for me. I don't get the appeal of watching it. So for me, it is wrestling / UFC / boxing.
I'm shocked by that answer. Of the Big Four, I think this will come to no surprise of anybody. It's MLB for me. Shocker there. But as a whole, if I'm just taking everything in the sports realm, a lot of people don't consider this a sport, but a lot of people do as well. I'm going NASCAR.
Yeah, that's brutal too.
That is absolutely brutal. I get the appeal with F1, and I was into that for a little bit. At least it's not just going around in circles for 3 hours. So I think NASCAR is my official answer there. But our final question I saw on Mark Titus and Brandon Walker's show. I'm blanking on the name on Barstool.
Mostly sports.
Mostly sport. Yeah,
yes.
That's what it's called. They had an interesting question. I want to get your thoughts on it. They talked about what athlete deserves a redo in their career.
Oh, wow.
Like if they could restart the whole thing, what would your answer be?
Ooh, one came to mind, and I don't think you're going to expect it.
Who's that?
Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon. That's a great answer. He just could not stay off the lead.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be honest with you, I can't. Obviously, he did what he did with drugs. And the NFL had their stance at that time about it, but he was a really good talent, man. He had some awesome years for the Browns, and it was not a good time to be on the Browns when he was there. And I think, just in that scenario, he's And it's such an easy. If he were to, it's such an easy thing to redo. Like, just don't
smoke weed.
Just don't smoke weed. Just don't do it. And I think he would have had a full and really good career. And now that was a question we hadn't talked about beforehand. So there might be a more obvious answer, but Josh Gordon popped into my mind immediately.
That's a good one. I mean, I think there's so many ways you could go with this. I mean, you could go the injury route. Sure. Derrick Rose, obviously, first one comes to mind. You could go with guys who retired a little early. Andrew Luck. For me,
man, Andrew Luck is a good one now that I think about that.
Yeah,
that's
right.
A good one.
I mean, I'll give you the first one that popped into my mind. Johnny Manziel. I mean, this dude was absolutely electric.
He stood no chance in the NFL.
Zero
chance.
But a guy, it's kind of a theme with this year. These guys getting a second chance, right? I think this is why it fits so well with this episode. A guy I think deserves a redo. Darren McFadden.
Oh, okay.
Is going to be my answer here. Obviously, everyone knew him from Arkansas with Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis. That run with the Arkansas Razorbacks was a runner-up to Tim Tebow in 2007 in the Heisman, and then he landed on the Oakland Raiders with who as their quarterback?
Jamarcus
Russell. Another great answer for this one. So I think my official answer is going to be Darren McFadden, former Hog. Gotta show love there. But, I mean, there are so many. I mean, we didn't even talk about basketball. I mean, we mentioned D Rose.
For the injuries.
I mean,
Brandon Roy for the
Brandon Roy.
Greg
Oden.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ben Simmons, man.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one, too.
Right?
All you had to do was shoot that layup. Things would be so different.
But, hey, we're getting it's been Ben Simmons season. Yeah. I thought that was an interesting question. Wanted to get your thoughts on that for sure.
So we came up with some unique answers. I feel like a lot of
Josh Gordon off the dome's a crazy goal. I got to tip the cap there.
I feel like everyone is going to pull out the Derrick Roses and that stuff. But I like our uniqueness of our answers.
Yeah, absolutely. But that will wrap it up for episode 142 of Crunch Time with the N3260. Talked about a lot this episode. The shocking of the Red Hot Huskers. Nico, however you pronounce his last name, dominating Boomer Sooner.
We had it. It was Iamaleava or something like that.
USC struggling in their Big Ten debut. Utah taking care of business. Iowa absolutely running all over Minnesota. The Giants getting their first win. The Vikings on the upward trend. The Cowboys not so much. Talked about our players of the week and wrapped up the episode with Pick'em with Jaron Kuykendall. We're going to see how he does this week, as well as some questions. But the clock has run out on this episode, but we will see you on the next one on Crunch Time.
I'll see you.